Finance and Budget is conducting a budget hearing for the Office of the Attorney General. And I like to, of course, apologize for Senator Pangilinan, who's unable to be here. But the good news, of course, is that his staff has done the analysis for all departments and agencies. And additionally, you must have heard, is that he's just delivered a speech in Washington, D.C. This morning, and that's regarding the Military Housing Privatization Initiative, which I think is a great, thing, and will bring some news back to us. If anyone has any questions and concerns regarding the budget hearings or the budget submittals, that they can please contact the Office of Finance and Budget at 473-4236 or 7. And as I've mentioned earlier to others who've come before us, is that although the budget hearing is this afternoon, is that we would continue to leave the door open, of course, to meet with you for some changes, and and in particular, especially your agency, because just for the record, your office submitted an amended budget request to OFB at 4:45 yesterday afternoon, but the OFB analysis that we did, that I'll be discussing today, was prepared, was based on your first submittal that you had sent down to the legislature on March. So it's going to be a little bit confusing, but I think we need to talk about, first of all, what we have, because that is the official budget, and then the amended version. Then we can address that after this, because then I'm sure then it's going to change, I'm sure, the figures as well. So before we start, I'd like to introduce and thank members of the legislature who are here with us, and I would like to start off with the chairman who has oversight on public safety, and that's Senator Palacios. And going down to his left is Senator Yamashita, Senator Manasilva Tyron. To my right, Senator Duenas and Senator Tony Adas. Thank you again for joining us. So, Mr. Attorney General, I'd like to ask you to introduce those who came with you.
Yes, Madam Chairman, thank you very much, and Senate Finance Committee members, thank you for the opportunity to have us justify ourselves to you. With me today is I'll kind of go in order, is Carol Hinkle-Sanchez. He is the Deputy for our Family Division. Basil O'Mallon, he is the the Deputy for the Prosecution Division. We also call him the Chief Prosecutor. To my right is Terry Escura. She's my administrative, what is your title?
Acting Chief.
Acting Chief. She's the Acting Chief, and it's changed a little bit. And Chief Deputy Attorney General Phil Tydinko. Barbara Cepeda, she is the Chief of the Child Support Enforcement Division, and Patrick Mason, the Deputy for Civil, and the Civil Division, which makes up the Solicitors and the Litigation Division. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you on our budget. And we will discuss with you later the changes and some of the as you know, our office, our budget is a kind of a moving target, so we want to be able to give you a better picture of what we are asking and requesting for. FY last year was a building year, and witnessed the growth in the office in terms of personnel, but more importantly, growth in terms of service to the people and government agencies. Regarding our Civil Division, requests for opinions continue to come in to the office from many sectors of the government, from agencies, departments such as Public Health, DOA, GPD, DPW, and even the Legislature itself. It seems that everyone wants an AG opinion. To me, that's a good thing. It shows the confidence people have in the work of my office and my staff, and I have all the confidence in them. But sometimes people are asking for, when they ask for an opinion, where they're really wanting a memo, informational letter from them, and we take that from a a case-by-case basis, and we will issue those as appropriately. But regardless, we always attempt to get some form of answer out as soon as possible. Now, people may not like the answer, as witnessed over the past year or so, but it is what it is. We've instituted a tracking system so that we can tell with 99.99% accuracy, certainty, that we've received a request or not. Much of our civil work was and continues to be in the procurement area. With a limited number of procurement assistants, we have prioritized the work. And as you know, last year, with a lot of work and assistance and help with the legislature, we set up a kind of a schedule. As you know, we put the administration and its agencies on a schedule to make sure that the money was encumbered and spent. And I believe that worked fairly well for most of the agencies. That work continues, and we instituted a schedule once again to deal with the expected glut of ARA-related procurements that we expect to see. And we don't want the Civil Division to be inundated with too much work, with that work as it comes in. So we want to make sure that the schedule is implemented. And in between all the work, our procurement AGs, assistant attorneys generals, are conducted 2 government-wide trainings. We anticipate conducting more. We believe it's a service not only to the government agencies but to the people, to make sure that they understand the procurement rules, so that everyone is carrying out the spirit and the letter of the procurement laws, and that's transparency. Everyone knows that the money is being spent properly. Many of our staff wear more than 2 hats, and that's very evident in our civil division. And as always, we're reviewing the legislation emanating from the legislature to the extent that we do get them. We have some new initiatives. We're looking to be more active in the areas of collections, tax collections, such as gross receipts taxes and business privilege taxes. And we hear anecdotally of people not paying these and the government not collecting. And that's a sad state of affairs, especially given our state of the economy. With dire economic straits, much of that in the United States and with us, we need to change that culture. Mr. Tadenko can speak in more detail to that if you wish. He just came back from Chief Deputy Conference, where much of the attorneys generals out there are taking a more active role in the collection of these taxes. And with many pocketbooks hurting, consumer scams have increased. The internet has become fertile ground for these. I have personally been solicited in my office email. Congratulations, you've won this, you won that. We've all seen them. In the past, we've had Assistant Attorney General assigned to the consumer unit. For several years, that hasn't been the case. We've recently assigned 1 to the unit, at least half-time, and 2 other staffers to make up the unit. We want to make sure that is staffed full-time. And it turns out that the Assistant Attorney General is also one of the procurement AAGs. So, again, one of the many hats. We want to be able to provide a full-time attorney to that spot. Prosecution, with an increase of prosecutors comes an increase in cases. As of today, we are on pace to surpass our prosecution case filings in all areas. As an example, and you'll see the numbers in our areas of criminal sexual conduct, family violence, DUIs, and drug cases. As of today, we are on pace to surpass our numbers over the last 3 years. And every year we hit around 2,000 and above, but it looks like for many of these cases, for various reasons, but also, and we have some of the prosecutors here. The numbers have been going up, and Mr. Mallon will talk a little bit about some of the dynamics with those chargings and the investigative agencies that we have to deal with. All of the investigative agencies that we have to deal with. And we have several specialty courts to deal with. We have the DUI courts, which has been, by all accounts, very successful. We have a seasoned prosecutor in there. We have staff just specifically assigned to that court. There is a court, one court that handles it. The court knows the actors, the players in there. They know that someone has 2 or 3 or 4 DUIs. They know that this person needs to go away for a long time. So there's a good working relationship with our office and them and the court. We also have the adult drug court. We have the family violence court. These are all specialty courts that we have great working relationships. And we are the first. We are the first in the nation to develop what's called a family violence registry. It's much like the SORNA registry, but this registry will be administered out of our office, which and under the statute allows us to request for staffing for this. There is no one of the requirements is that we have someone who's convicted of 2 family violence cases. They get put on this registry, and there's no deadline or there's no time frame in which we can go back literally under the statute 25, 10, 15, 20 years, but for administrative purposes we're going to keep it possibly around 10 years. But going back 10 years and calling through all the cases, we're going to need a lot of we're going to need the resources to enter that data and data from here on. So that's a new initiative that actually came in place last year, but we will be fully implementing it with the assistance of the national registry that is occurring. So all of the 50 states and the territories out there, we are the first in the nation to craft and enact a statute specific for this. I believe it's a step for the rest of the nation. I think many great statutes come out of small places like Guam, and hopefully other jurisdictions will follow. But it's much like SORNA, but it's going to also require resources to fully implement it. Outreach continues to remain on our plate for prosecution. With new criminal laws such as threatening over the internet and sexting, we have prosecutors doing double and triple duty. They go in and out of the schools, and they also reach out into the public venues. So we're doing outreach to almost any outfit, any institution, any department that you can think of. Again, with civils doing the outreach, prosecutors doing outreach, we have family doing outreach. We even have a family violence domestic violence unit head is in Saipan today to represent Guam in a territorial summit on violence against women. Attorneys general, judges, law enforcement, grant administrators, and victims NGOs from Guam, the CNMI, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, and the U.S. Virgin Islands have converged there to collaborate and share information on best practices with each other to address violence against women in the U.S. territories. I was invited to be there, but I deemed being here more important. So we sent our unit head up there to make sure that Guam's views and Guam's best practices become part of that. So many hats. And I'm sure Liz would rather be in a courtroom right now, and she'd rather be at the home, back in our office charging cases, but that's the extra hat that she has to wear as a unit head. With family, again, family division appears that they seem to be on pace to surpass case filings once again. We are seeing new drugs such as spice, new crimes such as sexting. Not only has this division seen an increase in the amount of cases being filed within the juvenile community, but it's also seeing an increase in the number of contested hearings, fact findings, or trials in the juvenile setting, permanency hearings, and other hearings where child protective services is involved. Those are on the increase. This year, the family division has had to handle at least a dozen permanency cases where parents have had to basically lost the right to raise their kids for various reasons. And these are heavily contested and very hard cases to deal with, and the family division is dealing with that. Family division has also experienced a rise in bullying and cyberbullying crimes, theft crimes, and sex crimes, unfortunately, in this division, and crimes involving drugs and alcohol. Unfortunately, we're seeing those things more and more happening at an earlier age group. I remember years ago, where kids as young as 9 years old were hooked on ice. It was a sad state. Aside from the heavier workload, the division continues to actively participate also in community outreach. In 2011, the Family Division presented 2 major conferences on bullying and cyberbullying and internet and electronic crimes, conducted 10 school presentations. In 2012, the division has already conducted 7 school presentations, presented at 1 major conference on bullying and cyberbullying. And under our current laws that we're required to conduct these. The Family Division has also participated in 2 of Guam's very important task forces, and the senators are well aware of these forces: the Juvenile Justice Task Force and the Lonnie Kate Task Force. The Family Division continues to actively work with the Legislature on improving many of Guam's laws, as well as assisting in drafting and implementation of new legislation. Legislation including child pornography and electronic enticement, which is ongoing, safe haven legislation, which is ongoing, Child Protective Act, which is ongoing right now, and Family Court Act, which is ongoing. Child Support Division is also, all of our divisions, some way or another, touch on the children and children's lives. But the Child Support Division is probably the only, I hope I'm not diminishing the other divisions, but it's one of the divisions that provides the more tangible sorts of benefits, and that's support. That's support for the children when they need it. It's a sad state of affairs when a parent can't be in the life of the child and not raising that child. But through Child Support Division and some of the more progressive thoughts of child support, we're trying to get more of the non-custodial parents involved. We're less and less confrontational with them. We want to get them more involved in the child's lives. It's studies have shown that if a non-custodial parent is more involved, they're more likely to spend the money for their child. We do a lot of outreach with we've also got some numbers for child support. We've been, unfortunately, there's been a large amount being collected by the office, and that's great. We're wanting to make sure that the money is collected for the kids, and that's growing every year. But unfortunately, there is what's called a rearage, which is one of the kind of the bad numbers that the federal entities, the federal child support enforcement people look at. Over the last several years, though, our arrearages have been going down. As late as 2010, it's been up around 60 or 70, but over the last couple of years, it's actually gone down. So we're down at 56 million. And when I say 67, I mean in the millions. But we're down to closer now to like $55 million, which is a good number. It's not a great number, but the number hopefully will keep going down so that we lower those arrearages. We do a lot of outreach. We've got we've got a child support. We did a employee symposium last year to make more and more employers more aware out there of what are their requirements as employers to get more people paying, more non-custodial parents paying. We plan another one this year. We had a meeting yesterday. August is August is Child Support Enforcement Month, which happens every year, and so we've got the planning done for that. And we have another symposium planned for a few months after that. But a lot more outreach for that. And but very good news for the division is that one of our managers received a nationally recognized recent award from the National Child Support Enforcement association, which is NCIA. It's one of two or three of the largest associations, child support associations, in the United States. She's basically competing against not just 50 states, but within each state are different offices that are able to submit their managers for this award. So we're talking possibly hundreds of nominees. And Guam was able to get that award this year for the manager. What is it? It was outstanding manager, right, for the entire country. So she is the top manager, and out of maybe several hundred nominees, Pauline Chaco. Yeah, I was going to Pauline. Pauline Chaco. I wanted to do that. I know.
I nominated her, so.
Well, yeah, Bobby nominated her, and the write-up. I read the write-up, and I knew that we had a good staff down there, but a good manager down there. But after reading the write-up and getting this award, being judged by her peers and just people in the national field, she did our office quite proud. So she will be receiving that award soon in August. So that's kind of the office in a nutshell. I have all of my deputies here and administrative boss here to answer any questions. Again, we appreciate the time that you are taking to go over our budget so that we can serve the people for the next fiscal year. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that overview. I know that this is the packet that you've submitted, which was really detailed, and of course, you know, the change that the amended version you sent in would have to be analyzed. But based then on the analysis that was done by, you know, the staff, of course, at OFB, and it's important to note this because in the governor's budget request, he had proposed a lump sum amount to the 7 semi-autonomous agencies, and they include the Mayor's Council of Guam, the Office of the Attorney General, the Unified Courts, the Public Defender's Service Corporation, the Legislature, the Office of Finance and Budget, and the Office of Public Accountability, that the governor's proposing a $1.8 million decrease. So all the 7, based, of course, on the amounts that are being on you know, the allocation that he had proposed for all the different departments and agencies. So that's a very important information that I need to give out to all, you know, the semi-autonomous agencies who've come before the legislature. And in that, to give you a better idea of the figure, for 2012, the appropriations for those 7 was $55,324,000, and the 2013 executive request is $53,477. Okay, so you can see the difference. There's a 3% decrease, so there's the $1.8 million for all the 7 semi-autonomous agencies. Now the budget request, of course, from your office, at least from the original budget that was submitted, shows an increase of 55% in base appropriations. And it's important to note that in this current fiscal year, based on the appropriations law, which is Public Law 31-77, that we did not itemize the division level budget. You got a lump sum of $10 million which is basically for all the divisions, with the exception of child support, is that you got a 34% local match, and that came out to $932,409. And of course, not adding on the insurance, but your total was $11.4 million. And your request for this year is $17.7 million, and therefore the 55% increase in the budget. Now, once you had received, of course, the lump sum, then you decided how you were going to break this down by divisions. And so those are the figures then that we were working with based on how you divided, portion out rather the monies. Then we were able then to do a comparison with what your request is for the new fiscal year. And so based on what you've submitted now, I mean, how you made the division and what you're submitting, then these are the percentage of changes that we saw. With the regular salaries and increments, there was a 45% increase. You went from 6 million to 8.7 million. And of course, later on I'll talk about the actual breakdown in personnel analysis, or maybe I should just go ahead and do that now. Because in personnel, what we saw is that with warm bodies, for 2012 you had 155, and unclassified, and you're looking at 2013 136, so there is a decrease. But yet you were saying that there would be a need for, now remember, this is just based on whatever information that we were comparing from last budget, which shows an FTE of 176 to an FTE now of 158. And that's warm bodies. And then when you go now to vacancies, you went for unclassified, you went from 112 to 85 for 2013. Okay, so what we're saying, but these are all based, I know I see you nodding your heads, but then again, because these are based, again, like I said, on how you divided up the lump sum that you received from that 10 million, how you broke it down. Like, for example, for administrative division, you gave 2.8. For solicitor division was 1.9. Civil litigation, 2.8. Prosecution, 5.1. Juvenile division, 964,000. And then for child support, and that's a different question, from 932 to 3.1 million dollars, and that's, remember, that is based on a formula of 34% local matching. So so that's just personnel. Then another large increase, and you said you've really cut back on travel with the exception of federal dollars. On the 2012, how you earmarked that was 20,000 was for 2012, but for 2013 there's an increase of up to $53,958, so that's 170% increase, by 33,000. Another large increase is contractual services from 460,000 to 759. That's a 65% increase. Office space rental was 493 to 633. That's a 28% increase. And so the question that I have for this is that because in 2012 we have 0 for water and power, so I'm wondering now, the increase in your rental space, does that mean that water and power are included there, or is there a new lease, new contract? What is it that somehow increased your proposed request for rental versus what you currently are paying?
Okay, perhaps I should. Yeah, actually, in last year's. By the way, Madam Speaker, we apologize for making faces because we didn't recognize some of the numbers. And I understand, because we're talking about drilling down to the detailed budget that we submit based on the division level, although at the legislative level it's actually not quite lump sum, because we do receive it appropriated according to categories also, and because sometimes the legislature puts a restriction on the categories, which also makes it difficult to, ordinarily agencies have some flexibility when they're short in one area to move from others, but yes, we're one of the departments that's had restrictions imposed on us in the personnel area, so that kind of complicates the picture. So we always have to be careful that we don't move too far out of the personnel area and benefits, because if we do, then someone doesn't get paid no matter what, even if we owe it to them, and then we'd have to sue somebody to try to get them paid when they're owed it, and yet we have a restriction put on us by the law, which other agencies don't necessarily have. So we try to work within that. You've raised a number of issues. Real quickly on the rent, which we actually had pointed out last year, at that time that we were in renegotiations on our lease, which required that we pick up the utilities. So before, it used to be part of the rent, the utilities, but it was renegotiated. We got a lower rent because we decided, and the landlord said, you take care of the utilities, which meant that we would have to track our own consumption. And so that's why you see this major difference between rent and utilities. So we have been paying utilities since last year.
And water and power was zero in your budget, because then it was covered in your total rent cost of $493.
Yeah, right.
However, for the fiscal year 2013, your rent is $633,285, but then you're requesting for power separate $356,112,000, water $10,692. So that's not, then I can understand that was built in to the $493, but we're only looking at a total of $366,000 dollars. Let me see, 366. I would understand if that was built in then to bring it up to 633, but it's not. There's two separate categories and requests.
In the 2013 or the
Yes,
2012?
2013.
Right. In the 2013, they are separated out, and we're in a peculiar situation. Like right now, our lease amount is subject to renegotiation as of April. We have one of these anyway, it's just that's when the lease year starts. So, in fact, right now we don't even have a number yet, because they're wanting to put the rent up. We're trying to keep the rent down, and so it's hard to figure out what the budget can handle in terms of what we're requesting. So we're basically they've asked for 50-cent more increase on the rent per square foot. We have 31,000 square feet. So you figure, that 50-cent increase times 31,000 a month, square feet a month times 12. So that'll get you that they're asking above and beyond our current rent. And the utilities, they fluctuate. Total, they range we estimate about 27,000.
But in that
28,000.
But in that increase of 50 cents per square foot, of course, would that be inclusive of water and power?
No.
So they want to increase
They
your
want
rent,
to,
and
right
then
now
they
we
want
don't,
to
yeah.
and have you pay
And
water.
we still have to pay, we're paying for our
And
utilities.
even at a time like this, when there's so many vacant
Well,
buildings, and instead of the
Well,
rent,
we're exploring that, but that means that we'll probably have to split the divisions. So we are exploring that. That is a viable option. We'll probably be issuing another RFI out soon again. But the bottom line is the ability to keep us all together, which ultimately saves on resources, because everybody can share vehicles, everything else. But the minute we split, that means separate operational costs. You're just talking about putting in new lines, So you're correct, Madam Speaker. There are places to rent out that we're looking at it. It may still be cheaper in the long run to move out. We don't know, but at present, our explanation for the rent is that right now they're asking for an increase in our rent, and which we have not paid since April, and because we're still trying to work out the numbers. And the utilities, we're trying to control that. That's under our control as much as possible. Getting back to the, I'm not sure, I hadn't seen what the governor had proposed for all the autonomous agencies, so I didn't quite understand whether
he didn't, like I said earlier, it was just a lump sum. And based on that lump sum and comparing it to what we had currently appropriated for those 7 autonomous agencies, that there is a reduction of $1.8 million.
Per overall, you mean?
Overall.
Ov-
For
Overall,
all the-
off of the
So all the
total.
seven's going to have to share in that $1.8 million.
Yeah, but what does that translate percentage-wise? 1.8 million out of 3%. Right, right. Well, again, and sort of to also put in perspective why we submitted an updated one is because we do recognize that, I mean, our tendency, of course, is that we'll request, for the sky, as they say, because we include our vacancies in the event that things change around. Because, like, for example, I think last year we requested total in the general fund 18,578,000, and then what was actually appropriated to us was 11,221,712, and I believe this year we're I know in our initial one we had asked for 17 in local general fund 17.565, and I believe yeah, right. That's in our updated version, so we've actually, in terms of overall general funding requests, we've actually requested for about $1 million lower than what we requested last year. Last year we requested for general fund 18.5. I just rounded off, and this year we're requesting 17.5. Now, those include a lot of the vacancies that we don't necessarily fill, and I understand that ultimately, if we were appropriate 11.2, I'm doing the forest, that you're saying that we may all have to look at a 3% reduction there. If that's what the legislature goes by, like last year, if you appropriated us 221 million, you're saying that the executive branch should look at, all executive agencies should look at a 3% reduction on there. So is that my understanding of?
Well,
From the administration, I mean.
You're right. For the semi-autonomous agencies, all he's saying is there's that lump sum of 1.8 that would need to be reduced from the 7 autonomous agencies. But overall, of course, the total amount we're looking at is $43 million for the entire government.
Right, but in terms of since we're identified as one of the semi-autonomous, it comes out to about 3%, but
if let's say we're going to take that route of going 3%.
Right, no, I understand.
Everybody.
So, again, we believe that this year's, especially the updated one we submitted, is actually $1 million less than what we asked for. Now, what we asked for is not necessarily what we end up with, it, because again, it's if you were to appropriate for the vacancies and we'd fill them and all of that good stuff. But again, I understand where you're coming from, and so that's why part of why we also submitted an updated one too, because we have in the budget summary that we submitted at that time is quite different than what we have now. So we wanted to make sure it was accurate as possible, because what we've also experienced in the past is that when we show our warm bodies, and if our warm bodies are lower than what we end up at the end of the year, because recruitment is always ongoing, and sometimes we find ourselves in a shortfall because they only count the warm bodies that are submitted at the time of the budget submittal. And then sometimes, there was one year, I think it was 2008, where we had actually added about 6 folks, and then there were 6 folks who were not funded. And so we were scrambling, trying to find the money to pay for those people's salary.
And I think that's why it is important, because I know the budget was submitted very early on in March.
Right.
And you're saying now that, you're not recognizing the numbers. When I read off the warm bodies for just the unclassified, you were at, or currently, 155, but then the request for 2013 is showing 136. So, but, so that's a total FTEs that came from your budget digest.
Okay, that's why that number gets back.
Okay, so can we hear what
Sure,
that
yeah,
explanation
okay,
is?
now I understand. Yeah, our when we recruit attorneys, and the good news is now that we've got some of our autonomy on HR, in order for us to try to recruit attorneys, we could not rely on the civil service, announce it, take forever kind of process. So the way for us to bring attorneys on quickly, especially when you're recruiting from the states, is you bring them on LTA, which are deemed unclassified. But all of those LTAs get converted into permanent positions. So what you've seen is most of the LTAs that we've recruited over the last year or so have been converted and slotted into permanent.
Okay.
So when they first come in, they're listed as unclassified. It's the only way that we're able to recruit them and bring them on board right away, because if you don't grab them, they're going to go somewhere else. And it's hard to compete with the private sector. So the majority, almost every attorney that comes in first as an LTA, and then they compete for the permanent position. And then we slot them over. So it's the civil service procedures that do that. So every attorney that comes in first as an LTA.
So it's important, you're right, that we reconcile these numbers, because again, the warm bodies are very different. Then we have the vacancies that you're at 112 to 85. So we want to...
Right, so that's the major explanation. Yeah, every single attorney that comes in usually starts as a LTA, limited term appointment. And in fact, actually this year we've had a slew of conversions, and that's why we were glad we were getting our autonomy, because we actually had people that we'd have to we've carried them for 2 years. We had to renew their LTA, and some of them are like, well, why should I stay here if you're not going to announce for the permanent thing and all that stuff. So, but we've been able to push that along so that we can keep these folks for retention purposes. But yeah, that explains that. I apologize.
Yeah.
That's why we were thrown off by that. Yeah, they're always counted as unclassified.
And that should be less. That shouldn't be a problem next year.
But we've converted a whole bunch of
Right.
them, a whole bunch of LTAs to, because most of our unclassifieds are like the victim advocates. All are 100% federally funded. Are usually unclassifieds. So.
Okay, so the other categories for supplies and materials, you are at 36,570, and for 2013 the proposed is 126,700. So that's a 240% increase.
I think that's because we add child support into
And equipment from 35,253 has gone up to 141,890. That's a 302% increase.
Yeah, I think we did increase in those categories.
Yes. Okay. And the other.
And child support,
Yeah.
I think we did.
And
the
for
same.
those, you see, we were able to get a breakdown in terms of what it is that you're requesting and why the dollar amount went up. But the one where we didn't get any breakdown on, any details on, is on object category 290 for miscellaneous. And you were at 2,173,000, and there's an increase of up to 3,291,000. There's a 1.117 increase, 51%.
Right.
But we have no detail. And can you provide us some of that information?
Well, some of that has been a historical legislative, this is just my own personal opinion, form of appropriating to us in that category. And if you go back historically over the last 2 or 3 fiscal years, the categories that ordinarily would have carried that in contractual or personnel, especially when we were trying to, like for example, child support, we have a mandate to try to convert our POSSE, our MIS system. At one time, we'd always add in 10 million every year, because 10 years ago they said to replace it would be 10 million, which of course we stopped doing that this year because that price is no longer realistic. But the feds required that as part of upgrading and buying that we had to begin hiring consultants to develop the RFI, and then a consultant to develop the RFP, and some of that money is historically, like for example, last year's $340,000 for the POSSE consultants was in the miscellaneous, and then some of our contractual areas that we pick up, we use the miscellaneous and transfer there. Again, that was historically, and I'd have to go back, but that's where we saw a shift, that things went into the miscellaneous, which was fortunate for us because we were one of the few agencies that had a restriction put us in personnel, meaning that, see, ordinarily you say it's a lump sum, and we want to believe it's a lump sum, but when you put a restriction, it's no longer a lump sum, because lump sum means that you should be able to work it and pay your different object categories, right? But when you say, well, you can't move anything out of personnel, salaries, or benefits, and we're always scared. Like we've given a legal opinion that the 10% must still be paid out. We've given a legal opinion. It's there that the obligation on the hay is still owed to the government and Guam employees. So we try to anticipate all those costs. Okay, and so if the hay suspension is lifted, okay, everybody's going to be in there putting in, asking for their money. And if you restrict an agency from paying more than what's in that object category, then we're in trouble. And then I'm certifying, and then which I have been threatened in the past with the misdemeanor charge for certifying. So we're always cautious about that. So it's kind of a catch-22 for the agencies that have restrictions put on them by categories, and it's not a true lump sum. So, but the good news is the miscellaneous helps us so that if we're short in contractual, because we never know when witness issues are going to pop up, or expert issue, if I need to hire a doctor, an expert doctor for a shake and bake baby case, you've got to be able to have flexibility to move money into that category. But if something happens where monies are owed to employees, we still have the merit litigation out there, the merit pay. Guam's gone. That's coming down the pipe. So we have, in our agency, have anticipated that there's that potential cost. So the miscellaneous, thankfully, covers these other categories that may fall short.
But all we're asking then now is a detailed breakdown, because you did it with all the others, but not in this particular category.
Right. Because we would have preferred to a lot of that money would have just been put in the categories that we used to do 2 or 3 years ago. But it has changed and evolved in how we use that money. So, but yeah, we can.
And only because you see, in contractual services, there's an increase of $300,000. And what this was is that, and the explanation given to us is that it's to fund anticipated expenses such as the Guam bar fees, background investigations for vacancies, costs associated with expert witnesses, and the APOSI system. And then, of course, under that too, see, in the current year appropriation for the APOSI system was $340,000, which is 34% of the local match of $1 million. But the aggregated amount now for the local amount request, the match request for fiscal year 13 is $1,010,520. So, the question that I have for you on the APOSI system is, can you give us a status on that? Because we have maintenance $438,000 for your phase 4. We're looking at $571,880. So what can you give us an update of the APOSI system?
I could say that.
We'll have Bobby address that.
Okay, yes, the maintenance and operation, that's an annual amount that we pay for HP, our vendor, to run our computer system. The other amount for the APOSI system is for the upgrade. We when we initially got the 100,000, I think a couple years ago, and put out an RFP. Informatics got the contract and did advanced planning document. So in their recommendation, based on the timeline and the amount that it's going to take to upgrade the APOSI for 2013, their recommendation was we would need to request this $1.682 million for the next step, which is we need to let out 2 RFPs, one for project management consultant and quality assurance. sorry, and I submitted a copy of this PAPD also to the legislature. And so the status of that is we have the RFP being reviewed by our procurement attorney in-house. And once that is finally approved, we're going to let it out. And then, accept bids and proposals and then award it out so we can move on with the next phase, the APOSI system.
I think ultimately, I think historically, we have always testified that we needed to get away from the APOSI system because it costs us over $1 million a year just to maintain a very old system. At one point, the arrearage was, I think, about 7, 8 years ago, up to $98 million. We've got it down to $56 million. We had difficulty consolidating. We still have about what is it? The unreconciled, the undistributed child support collections that we're still trying to work out. In fact, I think that's a project we've been trying to work with the legislature to change the escheatment statute so that those monies that are not claimed, they're just sitting there, can escheat back to the government for use for child support activities or whatever. But the feds have always pointed out that we needed to upgrade the system because right now it's costing us $1 million a year just in maintaining it. And there's got to be a way to get a better system, whether it's high, and that's what the feds have required, that we go through this process of using consultants to help us develop to determine what's the best way to upgrade the system. It's either going to be, the document we submitted to you would have shown that the proposals will be either to buy a whole new system, to buy a hybrid system that would marry it into the current system, or buy patches. I'm using that. That's my own terminology, but upgrades to the system. But again, that it kind of permeates. Well, you're just basically repairing the system. But again, the bottom line is depending on which one they come up with, we may have to look at the one that's most cost effective, and we may not be able to replace an entire one. We may have to do a hybrid because the issue is how do you migrate all the data. So that's what's been costly is the $1 million a year. But in order to bring in a new MIS system that's acceptable to the federal folks that oversee us, this is the methodology by which they want us to be able to look at how do we plan to either replace, upgrade, or modify the current MIS system for child support collection.
But if the requirement is for the government then to have a local match of 34%, and then the request now for 13 is $3.1 million. Is that the 34%, and then the difference the federal government will pay? Because that's, you're going from
Where's the 3.1?
932,000 to $3.161 million. That's a really big jump. And
Local.
so the local fund is $3 million now?
Right.
To run the program, right?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
That includes everything, though. Right.
But
And then
for
the- and the Fed-
2012, it was 932,000. That's why we
Right.
had asked that question, because that is a really big jump.
Right, but I think last year was a combination of the carryovers and the incentives, and that's why we asked for lower. We ran off with the carryovers. In fact, they didn't have any supplies indicated in the last budget one because we used their carryovers and their incentive, which we may not be able to do this year since we've been using it. So that is one of the explanations for why that number is significantly higher this year in the local request.
So could that number change when a decision is made then, whether you should abandon that or do some kind of hybrid then to bring the cost down and something a little bit more efficient?
Right, but this is not even, we're not even near the purchasing. We're only, these are the studies these are all the studies that are required by the federal government in order for us to proceed towards the eventual purchase, replacement, modification
And
of the
when
system.
would that happen then? Because, I mean, every year, you know, just to maintain it is
Well,
$438,000.
The target, again, the document we submitted, the planning advance document that the consultants had developed and we submitted, the target date, of course, like all target dates are moving, is FY 2016. But again, the difference between what we did 5 years ago and today is we're not looking at automatically replacing it with a new, brand new box, to use the metaphor. What the feds are looking at is sometimes you can modify the box, sometimes you just change the inside. They're telling us that because all the states are looking at fiscal difficulties, that they're open to perhaps the number will be much lower, because obviously replacing a system with a brand new box is a lot more expensive than buying hybrids, which means, you know, putting part of their equipment with our current equipment, or some other software modification, which may be cheaper, maybe not as, it may not be the 100% efficiency that we desire in getting a brand new box, but, you know, doing 80% or 70% better than what we're doing today, meaning that we're not paying $1 million a year on maintenance. You know, if we can bring that number all the way down, then that may be significant, and that might be addressed by these different options. But you're absolutely right. That number may come down, but the big difference is that we were running off, child support was running off of their carryovers and their incentive. And the incentive is if they're more effective and efficient, as evidenced by one of their managers getting that national award, what the federal government does is they'll give us a 100% incentive of the what do you call it, off of the match. So and then we use that money to help carry some of their other supplies or operations.
Okay, so just on the APOSI system then, is that I think the chairman has a question on the APOSI system? Okay.
You know, it appears then that this system, where would this system place us with respect to efficiency and expedited processing and transacting all this payment and then eventually reaching the the custodial parents? Because only 3 days ago I received a text that DOA withheld the money, and then it took the DOA, I think, 2 weeks to 4 weeks to transmit to the AG, and then several weeks from the AG to this person. And so I think that is what the APOSI system would put us at once this is upgraded, because this has been a problem. And so where, because I want the people to understand that the APOSI system, while all this thing is costing, it's actually going to bring us to expedited processing, almost immediate receipt of withholding. And so the calculation is that within 5 days of withholding, the money is going to reach the custodial parents. Is that the kind of efficiency we're looking at?
Yes, with the new system, because right now the PAPD says that we have a system that's outdated. The information sometimes is not accurate. 2 different screens could have two different amounts, so it requires the staff to work harder. With the new system, we're hoping it'll be more efficient, and the staff won't have to be doing manual declarations of arrears and trying to reconstruct payment history. And instead of doing that, APOSI should be able to prepare an accurate declaration of arrears right off the system, instead of, like I said, a staff going through a thick file and reconstructing it. We're hoping also with the new system that parents and employers are able to access the system, report new hires online. We're hoping that people can check payments like you check your bank account. They can check when was the last payment that was made, how much was made. And again, employers could make payments online instead of sending us a check.
So right now,
or
we don't have
through
that
EFT.
capability. So
No.
what is the soonest that a person would receive this support, and what is the latest?
Well, under federal guidelines, and we follow that, when we receive a payment, we have to distribute it within 48 hours.
So what is our current condition? That's what I want to know.
I'm sorry?
What is our current condition?
We are, and there are exceptions if, like tax offsets. When we get a tax offset, we don't distribute that within 48 hours because there's a 60-day hold by federal law in case the innocent spouse files a claim for their share of their half of the tax refund. But normally it's 48 hours that we distribute it. It's out of our hands. Unless, of course, there's a problem. If there's, say, somebody calls and says, well, the child is not with the mom, you shouldn't send that money out, then we would hold it, and we would try to verify where's this child before we send the money out.
So the original plan, Chief Deputy, on the immediate acquisition of this system, I think, has changed, and now the recommendation by the feds is the gradual beginning, of course, with studying. So that's what this is costing, which
Right.
eventually will lead to the development of the specs. We're
Right.
not yet at the purchase stage.
Right, as I said, in order for them to kick in their 66% into any major project.
You have to be doing this.
We have to go through this system of development of the actual
You have to show
specs.
some kind of activities that would lead
Right.
toward that.
But the specs may,
Okay.
again, the specs, the good news is that the specs aren't restricted to, like I said, 5 to 10 years ago, the plan
Okay.
was replace the whole
Okay.
thing. But now that they recognize, and they're allowing many jurisdictions to consider other means to upgrade their system, which could include, as I only threw out 2 or 3 types to you, but because they're recognizing that physical issues, the financial issues that jurisdictions are facing may require that they look at other potential forms of improving the system. The bottom line is our system is not as efficient and effective, and we're still requiring people to go back and do everything by hand to correct it, and quite frankly, people should be able to go online and pull up their accounts, as well as the employers, and the custodial parents and non-custodial parents should be able to pull up their accounts and see for themselves, because we always have these 2 sets of records that we end up just having people dispute. So
Okay.
One of the improvements that
Thanks.
has been kind of talked about is a consortium of sorts, amongst Guam and other jurisdictions, where they would share costs as far as the software is concerned. So those are other things that are kind of under discussion currently. But yes, we're at that stage where we're doing the studies. And unfortunately, that's how the federal government works. You need to fund studies to see if if it's feasible, and so that's something that we've got to deal with.
I just want to say one more thing. Like the Chief Deputy had mentioned, there are different options, whether we just do a transfer system, a hybrid system, or a full implementation. The cost could go as little as $5 million to just do the little patches. For a hybrid approach, it will cost between $15 and $35 million, and then a full system might cost anywhere between $40 to $60 million, and could go much higher, according to the report that was done by Informatics.
Okay, Senator Drainage, you have one question?
Yeah, Bobby, it just seems though that obviously, even if you pick the middle, we're spending so much money every year. I just think, especially on this major of a capital outlay, you would look to financing this. And that way you're amortizing this system over at least 15 years. And then your debt service is really built into your annual appropriation, and it just seems extremely inefficient to be going down this road and constantly having this piecemeal patchwork. Then if you really settled on perhaps the middle road proposal and just finance this thing, then you have especially at current interest rates, I mean, your built-in budget that you're gonna get every year anyways right now is already your debt service to that. So I think we gotta go down that road, or at least explore it, put out maybe an RFI with regard to that.
No, exactly, you're right. That million a year that goes towards maintenance could be used for any of these different options. And ultimately, of course, again, that's why the consultants and the guys that did the study, they put out these options, but they're acknowledging the fact that it also depends on what it is that the jurisdiction can afford. So I mean, in my perspective, given the rates that are out there, we should be able to eventually do a replacement, but you know, it's figuring out what that million in maintenance will go towards, whether that's better spent towards the a spec that calls for replacement or a spec that calls for a hybrid. Again, within our ability to afford. So, but your point is well taken, Senator.
We're trying to get a better picture of this. Is that when did we start to, you know, put in our 34%? When did this all start? How many
I think
years
about
ago?
2 years ago,
So we're-
when we first got the $100,000.
100,000 was the first step.
And it's gonna, in order to
And
pay
then we-
this full amount, then the total investment that the government would have to put in for this system will be what, $60 million?
No, at the
Well,
high end,
At the high end.
So what are we working towards?
It was 47 million for the total, so 34% of that. 47.
yeah, the PA, the planning advance document,
About 16 million.
yes,
1/6?
16 would be the local share. And
But you say,
remaining-
but we would continue this up until 2016.
Right.
well, that's the
So
plan.
it's-
I mean, you know.
And then by the time we pay this off, then
31.
it'll be time to upgrade or get a whole new system?
Hopefully not.
Well,
I mean, no, I know it.
hopefully not. I mean, you know, the technology is quite different than what we first got. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, 10 years ago, you never could talk about online access, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
so that's a big difference.
Okay, so
There's a possible ability for upgrades, I mean, things like that are built into the system too, right? 'Cause I remember discussions with this, and if there's an upgrade, then we will get the upgrade versus
Yeah, you get the
you know, having to shell out for it again and us coming before you again. So again, you know, but it's real complicated. It's not as simple as picking the middle and going with it. A system that's in the middle may be perfectly fine for one jurisdiction, but not for another. So it's, you know, we need to get through this study right now.
So I know that there are millions that are not claimed that are actually child support. So let us know. Could you let us know how many millions of this money is sitting there unclaimed and perhaps maybe would never be claimed,
I think
especially their aging? And what I'd like to
5.2 million.
ask is, could you look into the feasibility of perhaps getting an authorization from the federal government of the child support federal agency to see if we can use part of that to upgrade the system, or at least the interest that it earned, because I know it's earning interest, the interest that it earned
What is it, 5.2?
to pay for part of this process. I am sure that they might be amenable to that. Could you look into that and let us know, please?
Sure, we will.
Yes.
We have looked.
By the
at-
way, how much
5.2 million.
5.2 million that has been there for what, 5, 6, 7, 10 years? It's been years and years.
Longer, right.
And so it's earning at what rate a year? You're talking about 5 million, but it's earning interest, isn't it? It is earning, let's say 3% on the savings.
Where's that?
And that's interest on interest. I said, so there is money there that if we can get the okay, because only the federal policy, I think, can authorize that.
Well, that and the statute right now, as you know, we have
Is that
child
a local
support has a,
statute?
yeah, we have a local statute, the escheatment statute has very long statute of limitations. But that was designed originally based on when we did everything by paper. We had the notice by paper. You know, you always were worried about, well, what if somebody comes back? Well, you know, everything's instantaneous. That escheatment statute is like 20 years old. So, and we have proposed, I know over the years, that we shorten it. There have been different senators had different versions. Some have tried to propose making that money go for this, go for that, but ultimately, it would be helpful to have that go towards the project.
Yeah, that's one.
But the escheatment procedures need to be tweaked because right now they're very long, and quite frankly, if we could shorten it like the states, most jurisdictions, they only keep it to 1 year. We put the notice out and people don't come forward, then it belongs to the government. Ours is really lengthy. But again, it was based on mailing things back in the, we have $5,249,450.
We've had this discussion before, but not really discussing whether or not the money should go into this project. So that's something that we're looking forward to discussing with the legislature.
Right. But the reason why we didn't discuss it about the project is because technically notices are out there to people saying, hey, you got a check here.
Yeah, right now.
You know, but we got to wait for I don't know how many years.
It's hard to believe that, you know, people
about
don't
7
want their
years.
money, but
So we have to sort of wait 7 years, and, you know, people change addresses all the time, so.
yeah.
Thank you.
So if we could
it's not-
shorten that to like the states 1 year, then the money is cheap to the government.
We had this conversation last year. We were working with Bobby on this,
So,
but
yeah.
we still didn't get, you know, the language that
Give us a
we
sample
had,
statute from other
asked
jurisdictions.
for, which
We'll
was
look
to
at it.
reduce the number of
Yeah, we
years, to
can do
make
it.
sure
We'll
too
submit it
that,
again. Yeah, we'll
Thank you.
submit it.
yeah. So on the
Just real quick.
on the apostille though.
Yeah, just real
Okay.
quick, because, I mean, I know some of the tech guys over at Bank of Guam. They're dealing with $1 billion in revenues in terms of what they're doing. I would really put out on RFI guys here, because even at your highest amount of $60 million, in terms of a system that would provide all those services that the banks are currently providing, I cannot imagine that being over $1 million just in maintenance costs a year. So that's why I'm saying if you settle down on the system, get the study done, the bottom line is you amortize that over 15 years, and we probably only need to be appropriating half of the million in terms of putting in the full-blown system. So I think you would get a good response. There's a lot of companies out there doing this right now. Thanks.
Well, yeah, the unfortunate thing about Guam is, even though we're small, we still have to have a standardized computer system, the same as New York or California. Obviously, they have more money than we do, but our system has to have the same bells and whistles that California has, or New York, or, you know, Ohio, even though we're Guam and our population is way less than
That's
theirs.
because we participate in the 4D system, so I mean,
Right.
that's because of that. We could easily get off the system and work on our own, but we don't want to do that. We've established a lot of contacts and great connections with the different agencies out there, and we need them
66%.
when we reach out and touch
Well, and we can
NCPs out
we can
there.
include that in our we can include that language authorization for that procurement in our escheatment statute to you folks. We can put that as a separate.
Well,
No, we already have the RFI and all of that, but it has to be developed by the consultants. So their work. We've already did the RFI. Now we're trying to get the consultant to develop the actual RFP with these various specs, and this is all following the federal requirements. They say before we pay our 60% towards your eventual purchase, we want you guys to do it this way. This is how you're going to develop your specs for the different options. But separate and apart from that, what I hear the senators suggesting is that we should explore financing the ultimate purchase in 2016 with our what's currently always budgeted to us, which is $1 million a year just for maintenance, because quite frankly, we have to believe that the maintenance can't be costing that much, and that's because we're carrying an old system.
Senator Tyron, you have a question?
Not really a question. I guess it's a matter of the policy that's in place, but the 5.2 million, I just can't see how the government can just lay claim on that money when there's a party, an individual who did their good part and acted in good faith to make the payment. It just doesn't make sense that you can't find the other party. You should send the money back. I don't know, just a
Well,
thought.
the statute provides that we try to find the person who is owed the money, and if we cannot find the person owed the money, we give it back to the person who paid the money.
Okay,
And then, right.
okay.
Yeah, that's all
Then
in
I feel
place.
better, because I'm thinking, okay,
No,
who are we to just
it's
claim
when
this money
needed,
as ours?
believe it or not, people just,
Okay.
yes.
Well,
5.2
I
million.
got some ideas where it's.
So,
Some
Each
don't
and every
want
one
to
of
be
us can
found.
do that, but
by the way, we ask this every year,
Yes,
so.
I know, that's
Yeah.
true.
They know every year we ask about, help us with the 5.2, because if you have a 7-year window, I mean, you can only send so many mails out to, over 7 years, right? I mean,
but
Anyway.
times have changed, and electronics, I mean, we're being beamed right now into people's homes, so.
And, and I'd like to just also extend the same courtesy to you as well as to the others, that if there are some restrictions, of course, that, legislations that have tied your hands, that, you need for us to be able to make the amendments, especially now during the budget, hearings, that this will be the best time to do that. And to explain further, though, that when you were talking about the lump sum, is that usually the language is, it's a pretty standard language for almost all the departments and agencies, really, is that there is flexibility between object categories, but you're right that there are some restrictions on personnel, because that is the largest cost. We don't want you to deplete your other object categories just to fill, personnel. And you're right, we don't want out of personnel as well, because then you might find yourself not being able to pay for, your staff. Yeah. So I have just one question, then I'll go ahead and open it to the others as well in other areas. At one point, you were representing Guam Memorial Hospital as their legal counsel. Was that agreement terminated? And and did GMH pay you for representation? Because this morning we heard GMH, and they're now requesting to increase in their administrative costs, $240-some thousand for legal services.
I'll just do it real quickly. A couple of years ago, I think when Peter John was the administrator, the previous administration, GMH did not have counsel, and so they had a lot of major legal issues between procurement contracts, in addition to, and separate and apart, their medical malpractice lawsuits. Eventually, we entered into an MOU in which they agreed to fund a senior attorney. Senior attorneys run about what do you call salary plus benefits, about $106,000. That's the total package. So they agreed to that. So we assigned we entered into an MOU with them and assigned a full-time assistant attorney general over there, and they would pay for it. And then the then that attorney would do everything under the sun, except for the medical malpractice, because that's litigation, and litigation takes up a lot of your time. But the attorney we put there would deal with all the contractual issues, employment issues, procurement issues, whatever, board issues, and so forth. And MedMal would be appropriate. But I think it was last year. Was it last year, Pat? I think about sometime last year, the board decided that they no longer required our services, and so the MOU was terminated mutually, and they decided to go with the private, and so, which was fine, because we could use that attorney. Of course, we absorbed it back into the minute they stop paying, we have to absorb it back into our general fund funding, and so we would assign them to work for other agencies. But so to answer your question, that was terminated last year, I think. Yeah, toward the end of last year, which is fine. I mean, that's their choice.
And that was the current board that made that decision.
Is that the current one?
Yes, I guess it's the board who makes a decision. We always deal just with the administrator. And I think when they hired counsel, they assigned more duties to outside counsel. Some of the duties that our lawyer was doing, I think that's how they were handling it.
Yeah, because just this morning, of course, we found out that the increase was for legal services, but at $250,000. That could have hired 2 attorneys at the Attorney General's office.
True.
Okay, well, and that's why it's good to know that, you see, and we found out by accident this morning. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open it. Okay, so the chairman of oversight, any questions, more questions on other areas? Go ahead.
No, about that.
Any question now? It's open now for other questions that you may want to.
Just a follow-up on that issue, because we're at that right now. It's my understanding on my last meeting with the AG this week that, of course, the GMH decided to just cancel that. And I didn't know that this morning they're requesting for $2,500,000 to do what the attorney from the AG was doing, for whom they pay only $105,000. So I don't know what kind of math they do, but it's not good math. Now, again, it is the consensus of this legislature that we try as much as possible to centralize all legal services. And I think the policy that if there's any autonomous agency or any other government agency that wanted an attorney, that we take what would have cost that, give it to the AG, and let the AG hire, and put him there, then turn around and have the AG then dedicate that attorney there. That way we have, because in the end, the Attorney General's office is the final legal counsel for the government of Guam. It doesn't matter what the issue is. And so whatever is the finding, for example, of a private attorney or a contracted attorney, in the end, the AG's office comes into play, because they are the government legal counsel. So this has been the trend in this legislation in the last 3 years, that we shy away from that. And if they're saying they need an attorney, then there definitely is a justification, but only that the attorney would be at the Attorney General's office, then detail over there. So on that issue, then we have to consider that, because it's not cost efficient in the way that it's presented by them this morning. On the I guess you have touched on this. Let me go back then on one more item on the child support. I still have that email. I don't know what to respond to this woman, this mother that, and the DOA is still holding the money. What can I say to this person? How can this be facilitated so that she can receive the money for the child?
Well, we could contact DOA. To find out why they're holding the money.
Because
is it a tax refund or?
No. DOA it's just the process, and I'm not surprised that DOA this is how they process it, meaning the delay. I mean, it appears to me it's unimportant to them, but that I should look into that, because once you withhold the money, you have to make effort to transmit that right away. And so it's a matter, I guess, of attitude, in my opinion. But I don't know what can we do to because they already received the money. All you got to do is transfer. I am familiar with a private agency that withhold child support, and immediately, within the next week, 3 working days, we have to that money has to be transmitted by the private business to the Office of the Attorney General. I don't know why DOA cannot do that.
You're correct. Employers have 5 business days to send a check to our office when they deduct it from the non-custodial parent's paycheck. And when we do come across employers, including DOA, maybe a couple times, we've had to call them and say, you are violating the law. You have 5 days to turn the money over to us, and usually we get it. But it's 5 days after they withdraw the money, because some custodial parents think, that they get it that same day, but the law provides they have 5 days to remit. But after the hearing, if I could get the name, we could look into it.
I'll get with you on a different time regarding this issue. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for now.
If I just, Madam Speaker, on Senator Palacios, you pointed out, by the way, Pat can talk to this, but we do have other attorneys assigned full-time to agencies. For example, we have one at you can tell them where we've assigned.
Yeah, what we've done, and this works very well, we believe, is, of course, we have a full-time attorney at DPW. Now, they can only work in highway, though, because funds are restricted. And we've assigned, we have a tax attorney, an LLM in tax, which we've assigned full-time to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Now, they're a little shorthanded there, so we've had to send a legal secretary up there about 2 to 3 times a week to work with that attorney's files and help them out with that. They're using that attorney for everything, not only tax, but for regulatory. They really need 2 attorneys up there, like historically. But anyway, they're using him, and it's quite effective. You know, when you have attorney right in-house, then you just go to the attorney. That's very simple. And they're out of the AG's office, so they have all our support. And we've also assigned an attorney. Let's see, where else do we have them? Yeah, most recently we've sent one to GEPA, Guam Environmental Protection, and they sorely needed an attorney sitting up there because their regulatory duties are heavy into legal work. And that's working out very well. We've got very good feedback from them on that. Most recently, we've also, Bureau of Statistics and Planning, they have some programs that have just kind of been left in limbo because the legal resources haven't been there. So most recently, we've assigned an attorney up there half-time. So one attorney is working half-time directly with Bureau of Statistics and Planning to help them, you know, with their mandate. So yeah, it's the Coastal Management Program mainly. And so we, you know, we found that works quite well, and we really would like to do that with other agencies. You know, I think GPD needs to have somebody assigned over there. My gosh, the work they've got over there is amazing, and historically they've had one. So we'd like to put somebody up there if we could. And, you know, other agencies like DOC in the past, they've had a lawyer up there also. And DOC has a lot of problems that need, you know, to be looked at. And, you know, in other agencies. And I just want to mention one other area is a hearing officer. There's where we're running into a lot of expenses and problems. Because we all these boards and commissions, and there are 30-some, I guess, throughout the government, they often hold hearings. And so we at times represent the actual board or the agency before the hearing board, and then we also have to provide a hearing officer at the same time who assists the board with those hearings. And we run into situations, now small things like, you know, maybe a $5,000 fine, things like that, you know, it's fine, we assign somebody up there, but boy, when it's something big, like an insurance matter, where they have a lawyer coming in, we have our lawyer, we can't take somebody out of our office and assign them up there to do the hearing. There's always an objection to that. And so what we have to do is we have to contract with somebody outside to act as hearing officer. And what I would like to do is have an in-house person just dedicated to hearings like that, so there wouldn't be any conflict issues. The boards would be happy because they can get legal advice. You know, most of these boards don't know the legal rules because, you know, they're just lay people who are doing a job to help out the government, you know, with very little pay. And they need legal advice when they hold these hearings and how they prepare for these hearings. Don't violate the open government law, things like that. So, you know, that's one thing I I've always thought would be a good idea, would be to have an hearing officer in the AG's office. He's separate from the rest of the staff, so there's no conflict. Yet all these boards and agencies then will have legal advice whenever they need it for hearing matters.
I understand you assigned full-time attorney to assist the revenue and taxation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Tax lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Here's an extra.
He's actually housed up there. We sent a secretary up there 3 times a week to assist him in his files.
You know, and Pat mentioned, he kind of briefly mentioned the hidden benefit to these lawyers that are out in the different agencies. They have the rest of the Attorney General's office to back them up. I mean, that's a plain fact, you know. If we have agencies who are privately paid, you know, they're paid by the agency, who aren't assistant attorney generals or funded by the Attorney General's office, they more or less are on their own. You know, someone from GIPA, the attorney from GIPA is an assistant attorney general, has the Attorney General's office right behind them.
Senator Yamashita?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Mr. Rapadas and everyone, thank you so much for being here at your legislature. We appreciate. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Sir, your people are outstanding. They help. They're there. They're thoughtful. And they'll come. They do what they can to shift their calendars, and I do really appreciate that very much. I just think, you know, the 5.2 that is sitting there in a pot, give it to CPS and let's develop a foster care ranch. You know, I mean, if the money, I find it really hard to believe no one's claiming the money, but if they're not, and that's that whole cycle. And I know, I understand that some senators are crafting legislation, but we need foster care help, and we need a place where families can go and get into the land and fish and collect their thoughts. And then parents, to learn how to parent, because that's a real huge issue. And so I've taken some notes, and I look forward to hearing the updated measure, and then I will try to represent some of the concerns that you have raised. But I do thank you very much for the work and the support that you've given to our families. And thank you.
Thank you, Senator. If we get legislation tomorrow, we will review it as soon as we get it.
We've been waiting for it since last year.
Well, we have some ideas, and I know that,
Yeah, my
that last
staff
year
has been in
we have
constant
submitted some,
communication
so.
with Bobby, with your office as well, so, and with Senator Palacios. But exactly what the Senator Yamashita was talking about, that was legislation that we were talking about specifically for that, for some of these unclaimed monies after, of course, that time period, because, so, definitely 2 things can be accomplished here. Senator Tyron, and any others? Senator Dueñas, any other question?
Good afternoon once again, and thank you for your presentation. How is your allotment release going? On time? Okay, good. Second, you mentioned, Deputy AG, that you know, we understand the budgeting process, and in terms of if you were to fill all your vacancies and do all of your mandates, you know, what that requirement would be. Has your team assembled a budget that would be reflective of status quo in terms of all of your warm bodies budgeted vacancies in your fiscal year 12 and plus increments? Have you done that exercise?
I believe that we factored in we always factor in the increments. We also, as I stated earlier, we also factor in the potential if there was a miracle and the Hagatna instituted, we always factor that in,
Sure.
reinstitute it. We still believe that we owe the 3rd year of the 10%, because we've heard there's some agencies that have actually paid that out, and yet we haven't. So we do factor all of that into it, and that's why it may appear. We always ask for more in the event that happens, because what happens is if it does pop up, and everybody's scrambling trying to figure out how to make that up if those obligations appear all of a sudden.
So can you provide for the committee that figure?
Okay.
Just because as we go through this exercise, as the speaker had mentioned, with the current proposal, we have the 7 semi-autonomous agencies with a 3% cut, which is the 1.8 million extrapolated over all of the 7. So if we are able to wrestle a status quo budget for the critical services, at least we could look at that reflective of your staffing pattern throughout approved budget for 12, reflective of your increments, and that would give you your recruitment capability and everything else for your constantly changing, retiring, and all the other issues you have with regard to recruitment. So that number, I think, will be very helpful for the committee as we debate the budget in its entirety. So if you could provide that to the committee, it would be very helpful.
Right, and now that we know that we were not aware of that the administration had that they were looking to reduce the all of us by about 3%. I assume based on last year's appropriation. So,
Okay.
so I don't know. We
Right.
have to get our hands on that because we wanted to.
Yeah.
We need to drill down to see what was the base number they used to determine the 1.8 million.
Okay.
And we need to see what they used as a number for us,
Okay.
whether they used our 11.2 that we were appropriated last year or
Right.
not.
Right.
No, they didn't really, they just said that
Lump
based
sum.
on this,
Yeah,
the
and
lump
that's,
sum. They gave us the dollar
So
amount
we
of the
compared the lump
current,
sums.
and then the dollar amount for the request for 2013, which came out to, the difference was $1.8 million, and it's go figure,
Right, and the inherent problem with that is if the base number they're using, like say for example, if all of the 7 agencies were totaled 30 million, but they're really using a 20 million, and they're reducing it by 1.8 million, that's really skewed.
Yeah. In
So
other words, you couldn't work
need
within your
we need to
current
figure out what the
structure.
base that they're using.
Right, what that number is.
Yeah, what that number is.
I, on your excellent presentation and handout, I put wow next to currently have 4,024 open misdemeanor cases, and I think it was wow to you too, because you put it in bold black. Basil, can you help me with this?
I think
Oh, I
yeah,
can.
think Basil,
You know-
Basil's been itching to talk to you.
No, but my curiosity here is really, and just because this has been discussed a number of times in the public, and I hear this in general, just talking to folks, depending on what the level of the misdemeanor is, it seems to me that there's a lot of opportunity to find some of these out. How does the AG's office feel about that in terms of, because with that many open cases, it almost seems as though you would be able to, and I'm going to go somewhere after that if it's possible, to execute a fine as opposed to having to take this to its completion.
Okay, well, you have to remember, we must follow the statute.
Okay.
And the statute, in a lot of our cases, we were given the option of just doing a fine for the individual as opposed to requiring jail time. But, some of them, like DUIs, family violence, a lot of them have a mandatory minimum time period they have to serve. I want to make sure we're on the same page here, because I think when you talk about a fine, you're talking more like a violation.
Sure.
Where someone just issues a police ticket. We've run into a little problem because one of those is not anywhere mentioned in here, because that number will give you a headache, is our traffic court, because traffic is one of those where you can do the ticket.
Right.
And we're running into problems because, there's way too many of those for us to try and manage, because those are held up at the Northern Court, and to try and recategorize some of our current cases into a fine situation would be almost impossible.
Okay.
The bigger thing that we have to look for, and you have to understand, we have a lot more cases that are not even listed in here because we decline them. And when we decline them because the argument is either they're de minimis, it's a minor infraction, we don't want to waste those resources, so we only charge what we consider are the serious cases. And that's the 4,024 misdemeanors here, whether they're even a harassment or a criminal mischief, criminal trespassing, and then of course you add on top of that the 2,700 felony cases that are open. What's scary is we easily, by the end of the year, we're going to have at least an additional 1,000 cases between now and the end of the year, because that's just our pattern. And going back to what Speaker Wanpat raised about, some of the bills that have happened in the past, and I want to thank all of you because I know and I checked the voting sheet. Actually, I brought it with me on the autonomy bill, and that was a tremendous boon to our office. You have to understand, when you look at these numbers and you realize we've been charging 2,000 cases a year, all right, for the last 2 years, that's with 14 attorneys. 14 attorneys carrying that load. With the autonomy bill, finally, I won't say which monkey off my back, and I went in and hired, and I was responsible for a lot of those unclassifieds transferring into classified positions. I've picked up 6 attorneys this year, so I'm now up to 20 prosecutors. And you say, oh, that's a big increase, and it is a big increase, and we are very, very happy. But the way I put it, twofold, that's why I brought you all the newspaper, is you see we're getting more and more serious crimes.
Yeah.
And I almost feel mamala to come here and ask for money because I know these are very tough times. And we all work for the same poor government, and we understand, these are very tough times. But you must remember, desperate times make desperate people.
That's true.
And that's why the crime rate is going to go up. And if we do not fund law enforcement, we're going to be really hurting for the rest of the year. And I know I'm going a little bit more than you asked, Senator. Just bear with me. I can't stop talking.
No problem. I got the same problem.
Okay.
I can stop him, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Hey, admitting is the first step, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm up to my first poker chip. Then.
That's right.
But like I was saying to the crew earlier, you must keep in mind that of all of the work of the hundreds of police officers we have on this island, all of that comes to rest on the backs of 20 prosecutors and 5 juvenile attorneys. So, I mean, if we get anything happens that clogs us up, the whole train stops. That's us, that's the public defender, there's the alternate public defender, that's the court.
Yeah.
And so, I work my crew hard. I'm not ashamed to admit that. And they will tell you that I work them hard.
Sure.
We work into the dark most nights just to get the job done.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was jumping way outside the box here. I don't even know if it's possible, but I was thinking if the eligibles on those to find out exist, I mean, I would be amenable to legislation that would recycle and get you a funding source here to try to help your division. And so, I mean, if that's something that can be possible to go through and do an exercise of all of those that would be eligible, and then recycle whatever that fine minimum to maximum would be, and then they could, use that as a funding source to the AG's office to keep that money instead of it going into the general fund.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we have been looking at, I needed the boss to remind me. That's why I keep him around. Sorry, boss. Oh, I'm in trouble now. We're looking at certain, you call them fines, we have fees that we're looking at of imposing. We have to do a lot of police clearances. They come to us, or from the court clearance, they come to us for signature.
Right.
We don't know what happened. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of it, but all of a sudden, GURA has been sending a lot of their people to us for clearances. And we don't know
Probably
why.
federal, regulatory,
And
eligibility.
we've been looking at if we can start assessing a fee, and we've already started that process to explore that. Then we would ask to keep that money in our office.
Right. And that's good to hear, because you got to look at those possibilities. I mean, you guys already know there's no way the general fund in the near future is going to, handle any extra load. So, hey, thanks, Madam Speaker and Chair. Thanks for all the work you guys do. You're doing an excellent job.
Senator Abbott? Okay. Oh, that's a fine.
That's $10.
That's
You're
$10.
talking about fine. That's a Christmas party fund right here.
Okay, I'll be there.
And I paid a lot of it.
I do have one request. If you can send to us the informatic report on the APOSI system, okay? Oh, wonderful. Oh, okay. Or we can make a copy of that if that's the only copy you have then. But anyway, just again to reiterate is that, if there's anything in which this, body can do to assist you, if, to lift some of those restrictions, and then others as well, because I think you're not going to get any argument from, the senators here, because I remember the first time that we brought this up a couple of years ago during a budget hearing, when we found out that DPW was actually going to spend more than $1 million on attorney fees, and we felt that, that $1 million, deserves to go to the Attorney General's office because of the services that you'll be able to provide, and it will definitely, help your office and then reduce our costs as well in terms of having to go out to, procure those particular services. And if that in itself, of course, I think from just what I'm hearing this afternoon, is something that everybody supports, and even with the a hearing officer, an in-house hearing officer that can actually be used to help these boards and commissions, and that I surely want to support and try to see if we can find ways to be able to do that, because boards and commissions have come to the legislature asking for either their own attorneys, and they just can't warrant, having one full-time attorney with them, or even part-time, versus one in-house to be able to assist all those other boards and commissions. So we look forward to working with you on the budget. I'm sorry we weren't able to discuss the amended version that you submitted, but at least you have an idea now in terms of what was sent, what the request is from the executive branch for all the 7 autonomous agencies. And it doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say, of course, that the decision is going to be 3% straight across, the board. We don't know that. As we get the budget, we're making decisions, based on needs versus wants, and because of the times. So it is now 3 o'clock, and we have completed the hearing for the Office of the Attorney General, and I consider then this public hearing then adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.